CBSN political contributor Leslie Sanchez, along with Emily Tisch Sussman, who is the campaign director for the Center for American Progress Action Fund, have been following the race. Leslie is a Republican strategist and Emily is a Democratic strategist. They're both here to talk to me. First, Leslie, let me begin with you. There's a major shakeup going on in the Trump campaign. We know that newly hired convention manager Paul Manafort has been given a lot more control, while the campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, his role has been sort of reduced. What's behind this shakeup? It's
very common to have these kinds of shakeups when you're not getting the momentum and the numbers that you want. When everything's smooth sailing, nobody makes any adjustments. We're all happy with our team. When numbers start to go down, you uptick the number of decision makers, the critical thinkers within the campaign. What's interesting with Donald Trump is he's so unconventional. He didn't hire the typical political apparatus that you need, the pollsters, the media buyers, the people that are looking at strategically how to best position him, the messengers, even taking a top-tier communications expert who's worked and really has some experience on presidential campaigns, didn't do any of those things. And it does start to show when there's a lot more pressure. Regardless who the candidate is, they start feeling that heat. So to get the delegates in order, to get the campaign position, and to start the lobbying within the Republican establishment, which he's been so antithetical to, he had to change it up.
All right, Emily, let me ask you this. How big of a win does Hillary Clinton need today? She commented at an event yesterday that she hoped to wrap up the nomination with a big win, but the numbers are tightening, the polls are tightening, and Senator Sanders seems to be catching up.
Yeah, she does need to do well today, although she is already ahead by about 200 delegate votes, and there have been about 2.5 million more votes, like actual voters, cast for her than Sanders or any other candidate. So she does need to do well, and she likely will do well. She has been ahead by about 15 points in every one of the polls, although I think this cycle can tell us that polling is off. We do absolutely know that. We don't have very good models for who is showing up right now. So I do expect her to win the state, will win by a pretty large margin. The states that are ahead also look very good for Clinton in terms of the thing that has been consistent, even if it's not the polling, but is actually who is voting for each of these candidates. When states are more diverse, when they have more dedicated Democrats, they do better for Clinton. When there's open primaries, when there's caucuses, that is the states that have been doing better for Sanders, and that's not the states that are up ahead.
Leslie, I want to go back to this sort of shakeup, this turmoil in the Trump campaign. Trump has been doing well. He's the GOP frontrunner. Corey Lewandowski has gotten him to this point here. Is it less a sense that the wheels are falling off and more of a sense that, wow, we might actually win this thing, and we need somebody who has a lot of experience in taking this campaign national? Obviously, Paul Manafort, he was responsible for that convention, those delegates for Gerald Ford when he was trying to go up against Ronald Reagan way back in the 70s. So is that what they're sort of thinking here?
Well, there's a couple of different things. Hope is not a strategy. And as exciting as that is to say that you've got the momentum among non-disaffected voters who come out for the first time, you had open primaries, which really galvanized a lot of both Bernie supporters and Donald Trump supporters, but they weren't the traditional base, right? There's still so much frustration with the anti-Trump base. That's the party has to coalesce if he expects to be the Republican nominee. And there's no shortcut to that. That is really kind of the boots on the ground, or the shoe leather, so to speak, of really working each party caucus. And it takes a tremendous amount of time. He's already behind the eight ball in that. And he doesn't have the people on the ground who know the party. They've already aligned with maybe anti-Trump efforts or with Senator Ted Cruz, who knows where that is. But he's certainly at a disadvantage with respect to that. And that's really the only thing that matters going into July.
Emily,
there's strategy.
Go ahead, Emily.
I mean, there's strategy, but there's also just basic rules, like basically how to get it done. You know, it's funny, we started this segment by showing the clip that everyone always shows of a candidate in their home state casting their ballot. You know, we've always seen that. But actually, in this case, it's sort of an event with Trump and something noteworthy. His daughter couldn't vote for him. His son couldn't vote for him. His lawyer couldn't vote for him. None of them were registered on time because they actually weren't paying attention to the very basic rules. And that's part of what Trump is coming up to as a problem. And they call it the establishment. You know, he loves to paint the picture that has everyone against him. But, you know, you're right. Hope is not, it's not a strategy. You have to actually know the rules of the game. I think that he did not expect to get this far, so we had kind of a scrappy team together. But he could very easily get outmaneuvered at the convention. The rules are not necessarily set. And he does really only have the support of about a third of the country. And about 2/3 are much more strongly set against him. So he can energize that base. And I think that his voters are so locked in that they will be anything that comes after if he is not the nominee. But he says it's rigged against him, but doesn't even know the rules of the game.
What's your take on that?
She brings up an interesting part about, and I think it falls on, there's mud on the boots on the Republican and the Democratic side. Nobody has tolerance or patience for people who think that they're above the rules, that the rules don't apply to them. You see it a lot with Hillary Clinton, especially when you talk to people in focus groups, a lot of women. People get frustrated that the Clintons feel that the rules don't apply to them. Trump, it's exactly the same kind of thing. He's run his businesses and the way he kind of operates, that he's above the fray of traditional campaigning, but ultimately it comes down to making the process work. You can deny it all you want, but at the end of the day, you've got to work a process.
Well, in some states, the processes work for him. Sorry, go ahead, Emily.
Well, funny enough, the process has worked for him better than anybody.
Trump a couple of times, exactly.
A few times, yeah.
It has actually. I actually think you see the same thing with Sanders supporters in many of the states. That they like the process when it works. It has been open, and the caucuses have worked very much in his favor. And then when they find out that it's a closed primary, that you have to show an ID, or that these voting rules that have gone into effect, many of them that I don't think should be there, but there are. Then they don't like that game either, and they say the game is rigged against them. So that concept that the game is rigged against the supporters, the average person, the people who want to vote, is very prevalent in this cycle, for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that is going to be the card that Donald Trump plays, and you're already.
But that's a dangerous card to play, right?
It's unconventional, but you've got to. He's bucked against the system, right? He's pushed and said the system is rigged. It was never going to allow my non-traditional candidacy, but I am a populist candidate. I have more vote. He's pushing that message now, and he's looking for that. As a messenger, you can kind of see where this is laying out. He's building that platform to say that it was never going to be an accurate count. It was never going to be an accurate representation of where the primaries were. And so that if it does come to a kind of a rules battle, he's trying to pivot and find another way, while at the same time, I think, bringing on some strategists who really know how, going back to the, probably the 70s, the 76 campaign, how to really maneuver delegates and when the party bosses were very strong and they could actually do that.
Yeah, so it feels like, Emily, that in both cases, it's a bit of a dog whistle, right? Because you tell the people that support you that the process is not in your favor. And as we get closer to both conventions, for example, on the Republican side, and a lot of people have already reported this, that if the Trump supporters feel that for whatever reason, just because Donald Trump says it may not be true, and it may not necessarily be the reality of it when it comes to the actual math. If they feel that the election has been, or the nomination has been taken away from their guy, it's not going to be a pretty sight.
Oh, that is absolutely true. But I think you see this very strongly with both Trump and Sanders, setting that stage that anything that doesn't work is because the system is rigged against them. So then all the information that comes in to their supporters, everything builds to that narrative. When they win, it's a game changer. Everything is different. They're building on something. But if they don't win, it's because of the system. And so that does lock people into a harder position. I think that's why there's been a little bit of a change in tone among Democratic supporters over the last couple of weeks. As the Sanders campaign has started to ramp up that attitude and that narrative, the system is sort of rigged against him, a lot of Democratic voters were very happy with either candidate, with either Clinton or with Sanders. They feel like, it's difference in degree and not difference in kind. But the intensity and the idea that the system is rigged against Sanders and his supporters has actually turned off a lot of Democratic voters and saying, look, this is the system that exists. This is what it is. And I want somebody who can actually work in the system and get to real change. And so I actually think that whereas there have been a lot of undecided Democratic voters, it's turned out it's locked in a lot of voters for Clinton.
Let's talk about the other folks that are running for president of the United States. I want to ask you, Leslie, there was an exchange with John Kasich earlier with a reporter, and a lot of people are saying that, that was a little glimpse into the John Kasich that a lot of people in Ohio know as governor of that state, and in that he keeps saying that he's the only one who can beat Hillary Clinton should she be the eventual nominee, but that a lot of people in Ohio say he's testy, he's somebody who has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Yeah. What is your experience, your knowledge of the Kasich campaign, and how do Ohioans see him? Because as Ohio goes, so does the rest of the country.
Sure, and I think a lot of folks on Capitol Hill agree with what the Ohioans say, that he is somebody who's known to have that kind of temperament, but he also is known to get things done. He's known to work across the aisle. He fundamentally, you don't have to like everything about him, but does he produce results? And he undeniably does. I think that's the biggest advantage he has. The second biggest advantage, and we expect to see him perform really well in in the shadow of Donald Trump today is that he's the most likable. He has the highest favorable, a lot because he hasn't had the limelight on him like the other two. But that does make a difference when you have these types of competing candidates. There are so many individuals who are holding their nose right now to support Senator Cruz because they don't feel there's a viable option with Governor Kasich, but there may be as things shake out in the convention like we're expecting. I think there's a very quiet call for his type of temperament, his experience, maybe with somebody as it may be with a Trump or however this may have lied, even though he said he never would do that, there is still frustration within the party about finding the right alternative, and it's not necessarily Senator Cruz.
And Emily, before we go, obviously New York is voting today. Donald Trump, for a lot of people, brash, quintessential New Yorker. Hillary Clinton, this is her adopted state. Bernie Sanders, born across the river in BK. Ted Cruz, New York values. I mean, obviously, we're not expecting him to to even come close to where Trump is going to be. But can he do anything today? Will you see any result that would at least prevent Trump from declaring an outright victory down the road?
I mean, Cruz has barely put any effort into the state at all because of the way the Republican delegates are allocated is by congressional district. So actually going around parts of the state where Trump is not as strong is smart. And Cruz has been attempting to do that. But his platform, his temperament, his rhetoric is so not for New Yorkers. Even when he tried to do a couple of campaign stops, they were either canceled, they were booed. He is a not good fit for New York. So, I mean, he's not spending a lot of time there, nor should he.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to see how it all plays out today. Emily Tisch Sussman and Leslie Sanchez, thank you both. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.